walk through the studio. We'll walk through here and give you a little bit more feedback. If you wait a second, I'll go ahead and put this phone on a stand. There you go. So Mary Beth, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You got a first question?
I do. Are you drinking anything this morning?
Guys, I'm going to
I switched from coffee to tea.
Wait, what, Kat?
Right?
Michael,
I
could
need
you
to mute one of my sounds.
And could you flip your view, please?
Let's see. That's me. There now?
Perfect. I can
There
see.
we go.
Are we good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
All right.
So the question was, what am I having to drink?
Yep, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking tea now. It's hotter down here. I'm in the south, so I gotta stay cool. So you guys get hot where you're at, so I don't know what you drink, but that's what we do.
Well, I picked a mug just for you today from my little collection. Just,
Let's see.
I don't know if you can
There
see
you go.
that.
Oh, it's
That's
perfect.
just for you.
It's perfect.
So this is, do you know who Bradley Clem is?
Yeah, I sure do.
Yeah. So his artwork addresses a lot of the concern for water and wildlife and conservation. So I thought this would be perfect. So cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just drinking water.
For the most part, I'm a catch and release kind of.
Yeah.
So I do that because I want to have fish for my kids to catch.
Yes. Okay, so let's start with where are you actually joining us from today?
This is inside my studio. I've been here about 23 years. Before that, I had a milk barn I built a studio against, and then built a house with a studio and moved here 23 years ago. And
So
it was a big change for me because I was making, at that time, sort of sculptural pots, things for people to look at. And the natural world here had a big effect on what I do. And guys, I'm getting an echo. Is there anything I can do on my end to eliminate that?
Everyone's muted on our end except you and Mary Beth. So I think we should be okay. Does anyone else hear an echo?
Let's see. Let me. There you go. No echo. Much better. Okay, Mary Beth, we're ready.
All right. So you're in your studio and you were talking about in the past you were making large sculptures.
Mostly, I come from a potter's background, and that has led me to really expand little by little from making functional pots to making pots that were to look at and use in homes for decoration. But then it came to a point where it really started to perk as being, what can I do with all this skill to be an artist? And so coming here was part of that transition.
And so here is Bat Cave, North Carolina, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Bat Cave. Just there's a sign that said leaving Bat Cave, and one of my sisters said, "Note to self, fire Alfred."
So
He let the secret out of the bag.
how would you describe Bat Cave, North Carolina?
We're in a beautiful gorge that is between where the Piedmont of North Carolina and the mountains start. So we have a lot of beautiful flora and fauna. We have, as you saw if you saw the little stream, that's one of 4 streams that comes down across my property. I have a little bigger one by our house, just down the hill from here. And it's, it was, for me, being here has slowly grounded me into this using parts of nature like words in a story. And so my interest is in communicating sort of the more of an emotional side of an object, and not necessarily using humans, but using plants to sort of talk about the relationships between humans and plants and the planet we live on.
So if you had a friend visiting you from out of town, where would you take them and what would you do?
We would probably go on one of 2 walks. I could walk out of my studio, walk to a beautiful waterfall, and it's lovely. It's amazing to share with people. And then I could go right up the mountain and climb the mountain and see our whole valley. And it's called Blue Rock. Beautiful.
And what about, do you have a favorite restaurant?
Yeah, I do. I guess I'd say this is a place in Asheville called The Admiral. And it's sort of lo-fi, great food. And I've become friends with one of the owners, so I'm a big supporter of them. And you may know that Asheville's a big beer.
Yeah.
Very big.
Do you like to cook? Do you cook?
Oh, yeah. My wife and I both cook, and we cook together or separately.
Do you have a famous dish that you make?
I do one called Killer Shrimp, which is like a barbecued shrimp from Louisiana. And my kids think it's the primo. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to your childhood. Where were you raised and what is your earliest childhood memory?
Well, I was raised in and around Charlotte, North Carolina. Somewhat rural on the outside. And so I got to see the city and the country life. My earliest memory, that's not ready for prime time. But I do have an early memory of my connection with play. We used to live in a little community, and the water would run down the hill and form pools, and clay would collect in them. And all of us kids would get down and dig the clay out and make mud pies and anything else we could make.
So that influenced your future as an artist?
Well, I know I'm tactile. I mean, the advantage of being older is you look over your shoulder and you see what your nature is. and very three-dimensional, very tactile. So when I came to clay, it was a new world that just fit, and it sucked me right in. So that first 10,000 hours, they weren't hard because I was excited.
So during our time of quarantine, how do you reimagine? Do you have to reimagine how you're living or your workspace during this time?
So I live two lives, the one of an artist and the one of a designer and an entrepreneur. So that means I have staff. When we started this, we had 12, and now we're down to 9. And some of them have some concerns about being vulnerable. So we've tried to give them space that's free from anyone else so they can work and feel comfortable. But we've kept moving, and we've seen a slow down, but then right toward the end, the past 2 months, sort of a leveling out, if not even getting back to normal.
Right.
Which is great.
So you're talking about your mud tools, which we'll talk a little bit about later in our conversation. What about your kids? How has this affected them? I met 3 of your kids, and they're just amazing, amazing people. So has anything changed with them?
They're working in the business. I've got 4 of them that are working in and out. Because I have one that's college age that is actually apprenticing during this period with an artist named Andrew Hayes, who's an amazing metal worker. And so Atticus has got passion for clay and metal, and I do think he's going to be a maker. He seems that way. He's like his dad. He has a little dyslexia, and so it's kind of fits. My next older son is helping out with the company. He is designing and making his own knives and showing them at the big blade show, which is big for my knife makers. And most of my kids are creative. My oldest son's a painter. His name is Micah Sherrill. You can just do Micah Sherrill, and he's got a website. My daughter Havila works here in the shop, and she's living close by. And then my daughter Asia is giving me some grandkids. She lives close by too.
And Ren's going to be a scientist.
Yes. Or a cello player.
Right. Or both.
Or both. All the above.
So how was it raising children? Was it always a creative environment for them growing up?
Their life has never been separated from my making life. And so they felt comfortable in the studio, working, making, sort of by osmosis, they've absorbed a lot of stuff. And as they're getting older, they realize what they have, which is kind of
right.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have some photos of your family that we're going to share. I think Kat will put them up.
One second, I have like 25 billion things open on my laptop, so give me 1 second, everyone. Sorry.
Welcome to Zoom.
Oh my God, y'all, I do not know, and I'm a millennial, and so last night I was like, we had another event, and I was like, I'm killing it on Zoom, and then today,
Well, I only have 221 tabs up, so you win.
I actually, Mary Beth, I popped this one in, Michael, for you as well. Maybe you could just take us back to this photo and what was going on here and what year was it and what was happening?
This probably 1975, 76. And I'm old enough to watch the 60s do its thing, turning into the 70s. So, and because of that, I'm sort of the second wave among other younger artists when we got here to sort of come on the scene. And Asheville has this long, long history of makers and craftsmen and artists. Black Mountain College of Art.
And you shared this with us. Can you tell us what's going on here?
The eggs aplenty. I'm always cooking eggs differently. And those are homemade pickles.
Mm.
The omelet was cooked in a bed of onions and probably stuffed with feta, I'm guessing.
Do you have a garden?
Yeah, we've had a nice garden. Marjorie has canned a bunch of green beans. Our tomatoes got hit with what they call late blight.
Mm.
So they were beautiful, and within about 3 rainy days, oh my gosh. Yeah. This is a view on the Holston River, which is about 2 hours from me, on the other side of the ridge line of the Smokies. It's a big river. It's part of the TVA. It's flood released, and it has lots of fish. Isn't that beautiful? And this is the kind of stuff, yeah, go back to the mushroom. This is the kind of stuff my wife and I pick up constantly on our walks. So our sense of wonder is always engaged. We go to the next one. There's the front of the studio where I'm standing right now. It's about 5,000 square feet. And that's my Margie. And that house was built in the late 1800s, the core of it. And we've added on to it and modernized it. And this is my son Atticus with our dog Walker. He's a bear dog, and they howl all the time. It's a good thing I don't have neighbors real close.
What's a bear dog? What does that mean?
Well, it means they hunt bear. They were bred to hunt bear. I got him serendipitously as an orphan at 5 days. So Marjorie and I raised 2 hounds, nursing them every 2 hours for weeks.
Wow.
And there's my Margie.
All right, I'm gonna interject again. We want to hear about your love story with this woman.
Well, so we met at Penland. It was the 8-week I was teaching. She was my student. And the whole class started walking. It was in the fall. And so we were getting out in the morning, and somehow the 2 of us paired up and started talking. We found out that we had a lot to share. And the result was, a year later, she broke down and married a man with 3 children. And thank God she did.
So she's also a maker. What is her?
Yeah, she has a degree in ceramics and photography. She's kind of she sews, but she's also a tailor.
Wow.
I think.
Style. I love the outfit.
Yeah, that's one of her creations.
Oh, wow.
It's recent of us. Just getting out. Restaurants are slowly getting open here.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Yeah. My girls. And there I am. This was, I guess, this past Friday.
I was going to ask if you got to go.
Yep. And that's beautiful little brown. So much fun.
So what are
So
you doing in this photo?
What am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm just showing you my catch.
Before you release.
Oh yeah.
So
Just sort of
how long have you been fly fishing?
since I was about 14 years old. So it goes way back.
Yeah.
Any tips for anybody? I mean, like I'm gonna go to Tempe Town Lake and fly fish y'all after this, but any tips?
Okay, definitely
Well,
release if you're going there.
if you're going to a lake, you put an ant on, and they call heave it and leave it,
Okay.
because they'll get up underneath it and swim right up to grab it. But this time of year is terrestrials for most places.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's a big learning curve. Fly fishing is so much like cooking and making art. You know, there's complexity. The joy of things unfolding for you, to me, is the same. And I feel like this is a place where I'm not trying to impress anybody except that little fish that has a small brain, and he's smarter than I am most of the time.
Do you have any good fly fishing stories? It seems like quite the adventure to, go out into nature, and you can tell the way I'm asking these questions. I'm very city based, so I'm very impressed that you go out into the woods and get in the water. Do you have any good stories about experience
Well,
doing
I have one that probably typifies the artist experience with being a fly fisherman. At Kohler, I was a residence, and that's Kohler company that makes toilets and faucets, and they have an artisan residency program. I was one of 4 at the time. I went in the fall because I knew the salmon run terminated right at the factory, below the artist housing. And while I was there, I drove my car up and needed to have some work done on it, and was walking back to where we stayed and bought a bicycle for $3.50, and rode home and rode it all to the factory back and forth. So one day fishing, I caught 2 large king salmon. I stuck them on the handlebar. Their tails were dragging the ground, and rode back to my house. There you go.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
There are pictures somewhere.
That's so
So
cool.
would you like to show us around the studio?
Sure.
So one more question about fly fishing. How many hours do you fly fish in like one visit? Like Friday, like how long?
Well, generally I've not had a boat, but the past 4 years I have a raft. And so I've been going with friends, and that's usually an all-day affair.
Mhm.
If I want to just jump in the stream close to here, it could be an hour in the water, half an hour, just at the end of the day. I have a trout stream behind my office, which is about 1.25 miles away. And that's where Mud Tools office is at too.
Nice.
I'm trying to see if I can get the mobile to work here. Have you turned my phone back on? Or allow that screen to be on?
It's black on my end.
Okay, I'll just take the iPad.
And bear with us, everyone. We're in a gorge, so.
Turn around. So this is the metal side of the business. You're looking at what a blacksmith and a sculptor would have. The big black thing is a power hammer, anvil, hammers, furnace. For my tigging table, where I put sculptures together. So this wall right here is my working wall. So the black thing in the middle is a mock-up for a big piece for New York City. It'll be forged and cast components with porcelain components and also glass. I don't know if you can see this with all the light, but this is a maquette made out of baling wire. So this will have, well, this is the skeleton. And of course, where I've been standing is my main workroom, where I work in clay mostly. My computers. You see that one that says push. That's the automated extruder that we've designed and are building in-house. And if we have time, I'll turn it on. So my son, Atticus, this is some of the stuff he's doing. Those are formed out of tubes of clay. He's been working with this idea for a couple months. Sorry. It's our glaze room, which is very important to us because of colored clay, a lot of testing.
Clean.
That's because I have help.
So what does your typical day look like in the studio?
I'm usually in by about 9:30. Big spray booth. So this is serving double duty. It's a real spray booth, and then it becomes a paint booth for mud tools. These are guys that are ready to be painted, and then they go in the oven to draw back. And I'll take you over. So this is my jewelry area, or small metals. So wax pots.
And that's the Wonder Wall.
That's the Wonder Wall. A little worse for wear. This is an Atticus when he was younger, that little face. And we pick up things like skeletons of this box turtle. And this is my glass bench, a kneeler. So I'll work here when I'm making components, and I'll also put together waxes in this location.
Do you break up your day in the studio where you might do like 2 hours in doing glass and then 1 hour metal and then ceramics or the clay component, or do you stick to one medium for each studio day?
I can jump around.
Let me just see if I can get this to focus on my hand. There you go. So that shiny one would be a bloom that I made, like for the yucca that's in the show. But then it gets sandblasted and polished. So it's got a sort of semi-matte. To me, looks more realistic. So your question again, Mary Beth?
I was just asking if you break up your day working with different medium or stick to one for that day.
And one of the things that's happened, I used to work on lots of things at the same time as a potter. As I've gotten older, I'm working on one sculpture at a time, more or less. But that's changed. I don't know if you can switch back so I can see myself, so I can set this thing up again. I can just put it right here. Let me switch the camera. There you go. So but right now I'm doing things like I'm doing waxes for cast and in working. We doing okay?
You're freezing a little bit.
Uh-oh. Give him a second to reconnect.
Is that working okay?
We can hear you.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
I'm gonna switch my phone if it would help. Can't see me?
Your image is frozen, but we can hear you.
Well, we can continue talking.
So you can hear us?
There's the delay right now.
There he is. We can see you now, Michael, moving around.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry for that.
that's okay. So I just wanted to quick talk about mud tools. If you can, why don't you tell a little bit about mud tools and what started mud tools and what was the first tool that you made and why?
Well, from the beginning of my making, I was always picking up things and using them in clay, just to see what would happen. And in high school, I had an art teacher who said, Michael, you never use non-clay tools on clay. And as I've never fit into any kind of stricture like that. That's not my way. He's a great guy. He's a good teacher, but I've spent my life just trying to find things that work, regardless if they were dedicated to that use. And some of them work and some of them fail. And as a young potter, I think I did a lot of that, a lot of playing. To me, discovery is an artist is found in the time you let yourself play. I think you find new things, and that's with your work, and also with the way you look for ways to achieve things. I don't know how to get there, and if I've created, I call it a braided, where you're there and you can rub through it, and it's soulful or genuine. Instead of having a glaze that sits on top of clay, I want it to really look like it was one thing. It's what it's supposed to be. I'm delighted when people don't think about what the material is first. They just absorb what's going on in the work. The material it is sort of comes in a little lower down, but I will say that my work is informed by being, coming from a craft tradition into art has really informed my way of working.
Yeah, there's a lag coming on your end. So I think we're going to show some exhibition images right now, and
Okay.
we'll just talk briefly about the retrospective, and then we can have a conversation about that. So Michael Sherrill retrospective is currently at the ASU Art Museum, and it's open until October 31st. And we do have entry time, which Kat, before the end of the conversation, will put up that link to sign up. So a retrospective is pretty much following someone's career. So this retrospective was about Michael's 40-year career that highlights his contribution to contemporary art, craft, and design. He started as a traditional potter and did a lot of work with functional, and then he went into teapots. And now he shifted into a multimedia sculpture inspired by nature that's delicately rendered, and it gives a sense of wonder that he wants to incite the visitors to view and really just wander with the nature, kind of like what he was talking about, how he and Marjorie would go take hikes and pick up different things and just have this connection with nature. So I don't know, is he here, Michael? No?
There you go.
It also is accompanied by a wonderful catalog. So one more thing is that this was a traveling.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Which started at the Mid-Museum at Charlotte, North Carolina, and then traveled to the Renwick Gallery, which is part of the Smithsonian American Art Museum in Washington, D.C. So, Michael, are you there?
I'm here if you can hear me.
Yes. So how did this retrospective start? Did the Mint to you, or?
The Mint has been, the Mint was the first museum show that I had when I was a young guy in my middle 20s or 26 years old. They gave me a little small focus show. They would do that regularly for kind of new up and coming craft artist. And so had the chance to do that. And that was a real boost. I mean, you think back on all of us as artists, that the little things that happen, no one thing makes a career.
You're breaking
But
up again.
these little
Oh,
things
there you
that
go.
help make a career, I'm sorry, opportunities, those are things that sort of step by step you build your life. It doesn't happen overnight. At least it hasn't for me.
So this is 40 years of your career, starting from early works all the way to botanical works. Like how does that feel? How does that feel walking into an exhibition and it's just a span of your whole career of where you started and where you're at now?
I think I see the thread that runs through my work. And that's kind of nice to see the body of work together and to see what led from one thing to the next. And, there's a point in these teapots where they become more animated and lyrical. And was the jumping off point really for me going into the more botanical sculpture pieces. And I think what happened there was I went back to porcelain, which I truly love, and to make porcelain big, metal made it possible to sort of do something more larger and have a bigger presence. You can't really do that with clay. You can't do skinny linear stuff with clay very well. But in this case, this piece here is silicon bronze, glass, and porcelain.
What would you like people to take away from this exhibition?
Well, I've heard from people, they say that, I've had some nice letters from people that's seen this work when it was in Washington, D.C. And what folks said, they came in not really knowing much about me, came maybe to town to see something totally different, but popped in. And on several occasions, I've heard that people said they spent 2 hours with my show and had a lot to do with this sort of engagement. And that's really what I'm after. As an artist, I want to engage others like other people have engaged me. It's that simple. You're going to hear some noise here in a second. I came outside where I thought the signal might be better, so closer to motorcycles. Is that coming through?
Yeah.
Good.
Do you have any advice that you would like to give to young or new artists?
I think it's as simple as finding that thing you love, that you really have a kind of a gut passion for, and feeling confident enough to really let it unfold, to just work. And what I know as an artist, that me practicing what I do is my reward. I mean, it is a gift to imagine something, to work on it, to finish it, to share it, and then grow from that experience to the next. It's to me, that's it. So it's a little bit of perseverance and not giving up when you have back steps. Because when I first started making pots, I didn't know very much, and I had a lot of failure. Being dyslexic meant that what I found that I fell in love with, I felt like I should stick to it. And so that stickiness of being a maker has helped me through my career. Is, you know, when I have something really tough that didn't work out, I've been able to somehow press through that and go to the next thing or solve the problem. And I think that's the nature of art in general for a lot of people. I mean, the people that, and there's a little touch of, I didn't think I was a businessman at all, but there's a world out there where there's a culture of art and making, and there's museums, museum curators, there's gallerists, there are shows, there's a culture out there. And to understand where you fit in that culture, you have to be aware of that. And that's a very important aspect of being a maker. And I'd say the third thing is that we artists live or die by the images we take of our work, because our work can be long and gone, and those images can still serve to work, to advance our career, to communicate what we're doing, to sort of share your vision with other people, even though the piece is not in your hands anymore. But photography is just so imperative to us artists who are visual, not to be overlooked.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We want to open it up now to some Q&A. If people want to get some questions in the chat.
We actually have one already that was shared earlier. And it's from Mickey, and she asks, Michael, do the changing seasons of the natural environment outside your studio affect what you're making?
That observation of watching the cycle of life here, yes, it does in a big way. It doesn't mean that I'm going to make something at that moment that's reflecting summertime or you know, doing that, but it has a lot to do with watching. The reflection of that is watching my family and watching my children grow, watching them grow from season to season. That's when I look at this natural world. There are times I want things to look like they're cold and it's forbidding, and times I want things to look vibrant and full of life. And so my daily observations of the natural world sometimes can really inform what I want to do with these sculptures.
Awesome. And then we also have a question. If you could talk a little bit more about mud tools again, just because you broke up during that part. So if you could tell us why mud tools?
Well, mud tools started, as I said, as a part of my just making. About the time his dad, he started a plastic injection business. My father was an inventor. I grew up in a machine shop and sort of that around that kind of culture. So making things or having things made and putting them together was never anything strange to me. And as a result, I have, you know, I was making pretty good money 23 years ago. I was doing so for York and Chicago, giving money back to Uncle Sam because I didn't know how to real estate, you know, or a stock guy. I knew there was a demand for the things that I had in my toolbox when I go teach. And so that informed me of something that I had something of value there. And so I started, you know, designing and building these tooling to make mud tools. And little by little, and it didn't happen overnight, there's a huge investment in what I've done, but I just slowly let it develop little by little. And as a result, it's become a very, in spite of COVID, we're still healthy, we're still optimistic, and we're still optimistic about people wanting to work with their hands and use tools and clay and in sculpture. And it's, I've also tried to make tools that have a quality that allows they're well designed, but they also are universal in the sense that they're not so specific that they can't be used by the people who use them in different ways, and they find their own path to finding it. And I liken it into listening to rock and roll when lyrics are open enough that they allow you as the listener to sort of put your interpretation into it. Hopefully my tools are allowing the user enough room to discover how they use them. That's my hope.
That's great. Are there any other questions? We have time for one more if there are any. All right. Well, Michael, I'll end with a final question. If you could define yourself, and I don't mean this in a reductive sense, but if you could define yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Maker of stuff.
Maker of stuff. All right. Well, with that, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Michael. It's clear, you know, you're an expert at your craft. You found a need with mud tools. You're serving your community. You're reflecting nature. You're fishing in an ethical and sustainable way. We're just big fans of you, and we thank you for spending your morning or afternoon with us. To our viewers, thank you so much for, you know, sitting with us this morning and getting through our gorge issues with technology. We appreciate you all so much, and that we're able to still connect as a community during these, you know, difficult times. Our next Couch Coffee Culture will be September 27th, same time on Zoom. Follow us on social media. Check us out on our website. And thank you so much, everybody. I'm forever grateful for these opportunities. So have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye.